You know, people may wonder how I, as a born-again Christian and somebody who studied to be a missionary, could pose for Playboy. And in my 20s, I never would have done this. But, you know, I guess we could start back with Brent Spiner, how he came into my life. Back in 1990, when I was going to church 3 times a week and was from basically a very strict Baptist background, I was married to a man who was cold in bed and cold emotionally. Kissing him was like kissing the wall. And when we were engaged, me and David, my ex, we never held hands, we never kissed, we never did anything physical. It was just, he sat next to me, and most of the dating time was long distance. And he was a Bible college graduate, I was a Bible college graduate, and I had taught at a Christian school for a year. And so I married him with a long distance romance, and we got engaged long distance, and he seemed like my ideal man. And in fact, I had read a book called Sex, Love, or Infatuation by Ray Short, and I asked him to read it. I said, do you feel the true love feelings for me, you know, like the oneness and everything? He lied to me and said that's how he felt towards me. Once I married him, I realized that he didn't love me, because his main concern was not my needs or whether he was loving me. It was what everybody thought about our relationship. That's all he cared about. Like if we went to church, he would say, I don't like what you said to this person because it doesn't make us look right. That was what his obsession was. And I soon began to realize that he loved other people's opinions about him more than he loved me. So in my loneliness, I began writing Brent Spiner. This was about after we'd been married a couple years, and I had a baby. So I started writing Brent, and Brent, I was with Brent. When I saw Brent portraying Data in the Pen Pals episode on Star Trek: The Next Generation, he seemed like my dream partner, somebody who would understand me, who had intelligence, depth, all the things my husband wasn't. But yet, when I wrote Brent, it was not my intent to start a relationship with him. It was just to have a sounding board. I wanted a companion, somebody in my life who I felt could understand my deep thoughts, my musings about life, my love of great writing, my love of philosophy, and things like philosophy was considered devil thinking in the church I went to, like if you enjoyed reading philosophy. So it was a very strict church, very conservative. I mean, they even thought wearing pants was a sin. So anyways, I started writing Brent, and I figured when I was in my 20s, I was never really myself with any man. I figured if I was myself, the man would never really love me. I think my mother kind of drummed that into me growing up. She always made me feel I was inferior. So I decided I was going to risk it. I said, I know what I'll do. I'm going to be totally myself with this Hollywood star. There's not a chance in hell that he's going to want me. So I'm safe. And he's probably not even reading my letters, but it just feels good to do this. So I wrote him totally myself, every bit of me, even the parts of me that my church would have said was forbidden ground. To my utter amazement, after about a year, about once a month I would do this, you know. And I said, if you want, you can call me, and I gave him my telephone number. About once a month, I heard the phone ring. There was nobody on the other end. That was Brent, and I didn't know it. I found out later. He told me that the first time when he read my words, he fell in love with me, because he sensed a woman of depth and unusual beauty of soul. And what's really ironic is if I had had the courage to be like this with the men in my life, maybe I would have got a good husband. But anyways, the Lord used my husband to mold me into the wife for Brent. So Brent fell in love with me, but I didn't know that. You know, I thought, nah, no man's going to love the real me on a dash of... So he wrote me a letter saying, I appreciate hearing your thoughts. Thank you for that. And thank you for your compliments about my portrayal of Data. Sincerely, Brent Spiner. I thought, he likes hearing my thoughts? He's been reading my mail. So I decided, let me make a music album of appreciation. So I just got on the piano and played some hymns, and I sent that to him, and lo and behold, he fell in love with me when he heard me sing. And that's what made him decide to make Old Yellow Eyes Is Back. But I didn't know that. I mean, I'd heard he was making an album, but I figured he was just doing it just because he wanted to make some money or something. So about 6 months after he started on the album, when we transferred from Miami, Florida to Seattle, Washington, about within 2 weeks or 1 week after we moved into Seattle, I picked up the phone, said hello, and said, I want to rape you. I thought, who's this? And I hung up. Well, I didn't figure out it was him till about a month later and several more phone calls from him. Whoever the guy was, he didn't seem like a criminal, but he sounded, I didn't know who he was. I was thinking, I knew I was writing 2 people at the time, Richard Arnold and Brent Spiner, so I figured, well, it wouldn't be Brent Spiner, so it must be the other one. So I insinuated it was him, and he quit writing me after that. So I was trying to figure out who was my mystery caller. Well, my Christian pen friend, Melody Rondo, sent me Old Yellow Eyes Is Back, and I figured it out. I wrote Brent and said, you're the one who's been calling me saying this. And the phone would just ring off the hook, and then he called me up and says, can I come over? And I said, I'm sorry, I can't. I said, I'm a very strong Christian. Jesus wouldn't like it. I can't. So I turned him down. But we got a long distance pen friendship started. And I found a man who loved me for who I really am. And he actually nurtured who I really am and brought it out. And so I learned from him how to make love. You see, I realized that the way to find true love is to be transparent, to open, to reveal your vulnerabilities. It takes courage, but that's how you found love. That's how he fell in love with me. And when he called me on the phone and said, I want to rape you, I could tell he was being totally transparent and vulnerable with me. And when I realized that was Brent Spiner, I thought, what courage this man has. I mean, the way he said it, it was like he was bearing his soul to me. And so now that is why I'm doing Playboy. It's taken me a long time to evolve to this point. I had to learn how to be transparent. So, taking your clothes off is kind of like that. It's like you're bearing your soul to the world. But the way most women do it, they don't do it right. They take their clothes off and they emphasize the externals, like their measurements. Like, I got the perfect breasts. I got the perfect face. No wrinkles, no blemishes. I said, you know what? That isn't the way that I think Jesus wants me to do this. So I said, Jesus actually encouraged me to pose for Playboy. He said, Gail, Hugh Hefner died. The way he died was his testicles exploded, plus Laurie McBride's agent, a fat black lady, was doing autoerotic asphyxiation with him, and she didn't plan on getting off of him when it was time for him to breathe. She planned on staying on there and smothering him, which she did, but at the same time she did that, he had a blockage in his testicles, and when he was about to have his climax, all the semen just piled up in his balls and exploded. So he died from 2 things, Jesus said. His balls exploded and he suffocated. But Jesus said when he arrived to heaven, he said he couldn't think of a better way to go. And Jesus said he's been having a blast with him in heaven. And we found, Rule 13 let me know that Hugh Hefner's dying wish was that I would be Playmate of the Century in his Playboy magazine. And I conferred with Brent about it. I said, if Brent's okay with it, he's my husband, then I'll do it. Because I wanted to do it to honor Hugh Hefner, because I thought he was a pretty cool guy. And he did go to heaven, by the way. Jesus let us know. He's been having a blast with him in heaven. Lots of Playboy bunnies for him up there. So I decided to do it, and Brent showed me some photo shoots and stuff. And I said, Brent, Jesus agreed with Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner said, the reason that he wanted me to be the Playmate of the Century is because I bring in that inner beauty as well as the outward beauty. I have both, and I bring that into my shots. And that's what I'm trying to do. And Jesus said, I totally agree with you, Hugh. That is why she should be Playmate of the Century. So my goal as I posed for Playboy was not to emphasize my perfect figure, my flat waist, which I don't have, or my perfect boobs, and which I don't have, but to bring in the inner and the outward and just kind of mesh them together and show that in my poses. So, and I figured that is the way Jesus would want me to pose. And Brent said, Jesus, you okay with this? He said, hey, Brent, if I meant for women to wear clothes, I wouldn't have had them born naked. And think about it. Adam and Eve were naked before they sinned, and the prophet Isaiah was naked for about 3 years while he was a prophet trying to make a point for God. So Jesus said, I approve of nakedness. And when you think of it, it wasn't until after Adam and Eve sinned that he told them to put their clothes on. So anyways, so Jesus said, I have no problem with it. He says, I'm not going to order you to do it, Gail, but I just want you to know that I approve if you decide to do it. So Brent said, cool. So I did it for my men. They don't get a chance to be with me. You know, Brent wants to marry me, so the least he can do is see his wife in pictures. So I'm posing for Brent, but I'm trying to be a role model to young women out there to show what true womanly beauty is with my Playboy poses, and to show that there's nothing wrong with being hot or turning on your man as long as your motive for using your body is to nurture the man in his manliness, make him a better man, to love him, to help him to grow as a person and as a man. And that, when I pose, I think about all the men out there who are normal guys, who have your sex drives and everything, but I'm trying to help you to channel that sexual energy into a loving, nurturing relationship that will help you realize your full potential as a man. And that's my motive for doing Playboy. So, and Jesus totally approves of that. Jesus said, having a hot body, he said, is not a sin. He said the body itself is not the sin, it's how you use it that determines whether you're sinning or not. So looking at a body, he said, is not sin. It's that when you use that body in a sinful way, that's the sin. So my Playboy poses, I'm just trying to send the message to the world that true beauty is when you use your body in a loving, nurturing, and kind manner, and not when you're just trying to encourage pure lust. So what I'm going to do is, I and my men have decided I'll offer like 1 or 2 of my Playboy shots every month at my Patreon page for $60 a month. And you'll get to see like previews of it where the naughty part. You'll get to see the, you'll get to see edited versions where the breasts will be covered, the pubic area is covered. And obviously, if you pay $60 a month at Patreon, I will send you the unadorned pictures, like 1 or 2 a month. And I may do some future poses. So that's what I plan. I did a whole bunch of poses already for Playboy. I use this camera using still shots. So that I've decided it's okay to do it. Jesus says it's fine. He hates having the reputation of being a cock blocker. And he's got that reputation, as everybody knows. In fact, that's the #1 reason some people don't come to Jesus, because they think he's a cock blocker. So he's really happy. And Playboy actually had an article in, so they made a magazine with my shoots in it. It's an October issue, and I'll show you a cover of that on this video. And you'll get to see the unadorned picture if you pay $60 a month at my Patreon channel. Or you can get the Playboy magazine itself, maybe contact gailsmen@yahoo.com. So that is my motive. I just want to be a good role model to the women out there and to show that Jesus is not a prude. There's nothing wrong with being hot as long as you use your body in a nurturing, kind, loving manner. Lori McBride feels very threatened by the fact that I've made Playboy, because her narrative has been that I'm not hot enough for a celebrity, and so she's claiming that Brent Spiner could never love me because I could never compete with her because she's so young and hot, where she equates beauty by purely physical measurements and physical perfection, totally neglecting the soul. And, you know, I'm trying to show that a woman does not have to have absolute 100% physical perfection. You can even be older and be hot as long as your focus is on the soul. So, and she did the Las Vegas murder thing as a distraction so that people would not notice that I made Playboy. That's why she did that, and that is such a tragedy. I just pray for those dear people, but that's why she did it. It's disgusting.